Right. Welcome once again. I am Meals. This is Meals Conquers Everything. Today we're gonna do pickled sausage and hot dogs. I got everything I need right here. I already boiled up the I guess it would be the brine. I used vinegar. Oh man. Buy your own produce. Don't let Kroger do it for the pick you up thing. These are tiny onions. Tiny onions. I was hoping for decent sized onions for this. Luckily, they're not the star or anything like that. I've got some habaneros here. Also, just gonna need access to those so I can slice them up as we get to them. Now, I should have got more sausage in this because I've got a gallon jar that I was planning on filling up with it. I picked up a couple different kinds of these Johnsonville. These they're the smoked sausage stuff, the pre-cooked. You don't want to use anything that's not pre-cooked. Jalapeno cheddar and better cheddar for those. Some bun length franks that were on sale. I've also got some leftover eggs that I boiled from the pickled eggs, habaneros, and some garlic. And we're going to put all that stuff in there. And the pickling brine that I made was the same as I did for the eggs. I just doubled it because instead of 2 quarts, I've got a gallon. So I went from a half gallon to a full gallon. That's why I doubled that. But let's get started with this. I'm going to chop up these onions. There's not as many of them as I thought it was going to be because Vidalia onions, this time of year especially, at least at my local grocery store, which I live in a small town about 5 minutes away from the town I grew up in. And the Vidalia onions there are almost always very, very corpulent. Very well endowed, if you would. So I don't usually have to worry about what I'm getting with a Vidalia onion there because it's hard to find a small one. So when I did the Kroger pickup order the other day for this stuff, I didn't even think to look at them when I got home to see what they were like. I just assumed, which, yes, I know, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me, that they would be at least decent size, because they weren't listed as a price by the pound. They were listed as a price per onion, which I think was like $1.19, something like that. Very reasonable price. So I didn't even think to maybe check before I pulled away after the kid loaded my bags into the truck to see if, well, I better check and see if the onions are of decent size. Obviously, I mean, and that same day, my thinking was, I went into the store that day to pick out the habaneros myself because I didn't trust them to get me a pound's worth of habaneros because they have habaneros that are there for $4 a pound. But when I was using the app, it was saying $4 a habanero and only charging me for $1 for a habanero. So I'm like, so this doesn't get screwed up. I better go in and get the habaneros myself. I should have done the same thing with the onion. Lesson learned. So, but I mean, you don't want to, I don't think you want to, obviously it's personal preference. I don't think you want to cut these too small because you're basically you're pickling onions, but you do want to cut them not too thick. And as I've mentioned before, I'm not usually big on raw onions. I like them cooked. I mean, everyone loves onion rings. But I mean, I like a nice sauteed onion, especially with my pierogies. Or if you're putting them on a sandwich or a burger or something, I prefer them be sauteed. But I'm starting to come around on raw onions. Because as I've mentioned, I'm getting older, and I need to start looking toward my diet to start helping my body take care of itself. And onions are a huge source of anti-inflammatory. Have a huge anti-inflammatory property to them for people that have issues with inflammation. Just lost a habanero. Hopefully the cat doesn't find it. He'll be in for a surprise on that one. But obviously, having played football for 20-some years and being the size that I am, which I know you probably can't tell on video, but I'm over 6'6". And I was a lineman. I'm not going to share with you my current weight, but it's high. So obviously, my joints, just from the wear and tear from football, let alone my size, and I'm slicing up some habaneros to put in there with the layers here. I've also, I don't know if I mentioned, I've got eggs. They're off to the side. I'm trying to figure out if I want to put some on the bottom or some on the top or both on that. But yeah, my body's pretty well beat up. I haven't played line all those years. Everything just takes a beating, and everything started falling apart about 6 years ago when I retired. So it's like I got out when my body decided, hey, we can't take this anymore. And I wasn't like fat at that point. My body was just like, nope, we can't do this, dude. You need to give it up. So I hung them up and walked off into the sunset. And you would think it would be harder than it was because I'd played so long, and then I'm a big guy, so playing the sport kind of has defined who I've been my entire adult life. But it wasn't as hard as you'd think it would be, especially once. It was hard before that point, I should say. Once your body starts telling you, don't know if we can handle this anymore. As long as you're listening to it, it's not that hard of a decision. It's really not. And I haven't regretted walking away from the game since, just because I did it when I was supposed to, or at least as far as my body says it was. And on top of that, I got to do a lot of things lots of people don't ever get to do throughout the course of my career. And granted, I didn't play professional football because I had an injury in college that took a few years to really come back from. But I did play semi-pro for about 15 years at a fairly high level. during my semi-pro career, I won a championship. I got to play for a national championship in Florida, which was freaking awesome. I had a D1 scholarship out of college to Bowling Green State University. That right there, only 1% of every high school football player ever gets. So I really can't complain. I had a good career. My body, however, can complain all it wants because I treated it like a goddamn amusement park from about 18 to 37. And now that I'm 42 going on 43, my body's like, bruh, why? So yeah, I got that going a little bit. Let's put some of these eggs in here first. Now, I boiled these a little bit different this time around. As you'll remember, last time, I had a huge problem getting them peeled. This time, not so much. However, we did have a couple of casualties that I ended up eating because they broke open all the way to the yolk, and it's like, I don't know if I can pickle that like that. So it's still good for my carnivore diet, though. I'm trying to do the beef, bacon, butter, and eggs version of the carnivore diet. I had eight by the way, there that I just put in there. 2, 3, 4. Yep, 8 that I just put in there. I started off with 10. Like I said, 2 casualties. But yeah, I've moved on to a version of the carnivore diet that I'm just going to do for a couple weeks, just to try to trim some extra weight quick. And that's the beef, bacon, butter, and eggs. And I don't know if any of you have ever looked into the carnivore diet, but I tell you what, I'm sure part of it has to do with a career change. But my mental health is probably the best it's been in about, I'd say, 7 or 8 years. And that was one of the reasons I decided to try carnivore. Was because there had been a lot of studies that had shown that it improves mental health for some reason. And on top of that, I mean, I would take it just for that. Because I'm not one of those people that has a whole lot of sweets cravings, so that's not a big deal. I mean, usually I'll get a sweets craving every 3 weeks, so I can just take care of that on a cheat day. And I'm good. What my downfall usually is pizza, pasta, and anything with bread. My phone is ringing for some reason. The number looks vaguely familiar, but it's not coming up. Because I am part Italian. I'm German and Italian, so obviously I like to drink, and I like the stuff with the pasta. Oh, I forgot about that. This is why I need to get a separate phone, because there we go. Had an alarm go off on my phone. I need a separate camera for this, which I'm looking into. I know I'm a low budget thing right now, but who knows? I'll make it big someday. But I tell you what, this is therapeutic. I don't know why. For only having 75 followers and still wanting to do all this stuff, just to talk to a camera, I don't know why it's so therapeutic. I think it's because I talk to myself a lot, especially in my head. And it's kind of nice to hear the voice out loud sometimes, even if you're not responding. But I enjoy it. I think that helps with the mental health a little bit too. Because since I started doing this on a regular basis, especially with the TikToks, which every time I do a good TikTok, I try to put the short up so you guys can see it. But yeah, it's this diet has really helped me quite a bit because I've dropped like 40 pounds in just the last like month and a half. And I haven't really been exercising or anything. I mean, granted, I do move around a little bit more at the new job. It is a factory job. But I don't move around that much. It's a pretty easy job that I've got right now. Even when I'm on one of the harder jobs, I'm not moving around so much that I'm dropping a ton of weight because of how many calories I'm burning. It's honestly, I can attribute probably 75+% of everything that I've lost in the last, I'd say it's been about 6 weeks, maybe close to 8, of starting this diet, to just the diet itself. And my body's always responded very well to low-carb diets. Just like I said, it's hard to stay on them because I love my carbs so much. Especially drinking my carbs, my Lord. And I'm not talking about beer, I'm talking about pop, because I love Mountain Dew. But I've gotten really good over the last year or so of drinking mostly water. And staying away from the pop. I think we should be good now. Well, you know what? I want to leave that on there. Let's, before we start chopping this up, put another layer in there because I've got a layer of onion in there already. We're going to put it's the jalapeno cheddar Johnsonville smoked sausages. Like I was saying earlier, you don't want to put any raw sausages in there. I know you can pickle meat. Primarily because I know they did it during the Civil War. I'm sure they did it long ago as well to preserve the meat. But we're not doing this so much to preserve meat, which it would take a long time to pickle raw meat. We're doing this because we like pickled meat. We like pickled eggs. We like pickled vegetables, which the hot sauce turned out awesome. I would have loved to have had a video on that, but I'll do a video on the next one. There are some growing pains I am still going through as far as learning some of this stuff, and I'm glad I didn't do a video on that because it was messy. But yeah, so I'm just going to cut these in half. I'm not going to do anything fancy. Just going to cut them in half because I don't want whole big ass sausages in there. We just want nice bite-sized ones. And I picked the better cheddar and the jalapeno cheddar because I'm a huge fan of cheddar brats and jalapeno cheddar brats. Whenever I go to the German American Fest, I have to have a cheddar brat. I have to have one of all their sausages. Last year was the first time I had the knockwurst. And oh my God, it was delicious. It was so garlicky. It's like, I don't know why I had never tried the knockwurst before. Knockwurst before, because that was phenomenal, and I cannot wait for German American Fest again this year. If you guys live in Northwest Ohio, German American Fest at Oakshade Grove in Oregon, Ohio. If you've never been, you have to go. And it's not because the beer is amazing, because they've got all kinds of German beer, all kinds. They've got your usual local stuff too, like your Busch Lights, and I made fun of my mother one year because she had a Red Zapple ale there, and her excuse was, She wanted a hard cider. And I'm like, Mom, that's not a hard cider. That's apple flavored beer. And you're at a German American Fest, and we're German. It's embarrassing. But yeah, they've got a couple of your regular beers there just to satisfy everybody, but they've got all kinds of German beers. And they always have a couple of specialty beers that local microbreweries make for the area. And for the last 3 years, one of the local ones has had a German chocolate beer, a German chocolate cake beer. And German chocolate cake is my favorite cake of all time. My mom make me one for my birthday almost every year, depending on what kind of body image I have of myself. There have been some years I've told her not to make them because I've been kind of pissed off at how I've let myself go. But almost always, every year, I have my mom make me a German chocolate cake for my birthday. Well, this local brewery, Ernest Works, I think, or Ernest Brew Works, or something like that, I think is their name. They came up with a beer. They call it Crunchy Hippie. It tastes exactly like I'm having a slice of German chocolate cake. And their batch of it this last year was phenomenal. It was absolutely delicious. All the beers were delicious there this year. They're delicious every year. They also have this thing where, and you got to do it quick because they run out of the glassware quick. They've got these stamp cards. And over the course of the weekend, if you get your card stamped up with all the different kinds of beers, I think you need 10 stamps, but they've got like 30 or 40 different kinds of beer. If you get your 10 stamps, they got a couple of different glass steins to choose from that you can get for free, even though you had to purchase at least 10 beers. But you know, if you got a friend working there, they'll give you a couple extra stamps and you only got to buy like 6 or 8 beers, but it's not like you're not going to end up buying a ton of beers there anyway. And last year I was lucky enough to get a couple of really nice, the big mugs that you'd have like if you went to Hofbrauhaus. Because the year before, my dumb ass waited till Sunday because I had like 2 or 3 cards built up. And right before I was about to go turn them in, I found out they had run out. And I was pissed. So last year, I made sure I filled up a card quick and got at least one. And then I was there long enough and lucky enough that I was filled up another card and ended up with a second one. I got both the same because the other ones they had there weren't that either weren't that impressive, or B, I already had them here because I've tried to go since I found out about the GAF about 10, 12 years ago. I've tried to go every year and I've been very successful over the last 6 years, 5, 6 years of going. Except for they canceled it in 2020. Dude, it sucked. The 1 year after Mom and Dad got their RV, me and Dad even spent the whole freaking weekend up there in the RV. That was fun as hell. I totally just spaced in through that whole habanero in the trash. Good job. Nice. Talking to you guys, not paying attention to what I'm doing. That's why I like having y'all's around. I don't know why I did that, honestly. Because I'm not like in any kind of a rhythm here or anything like that. I grabbed the whole thing. It was a nice looking pepper too. There's no reason it shouldn't have gone in here. Now I'm going to have to cut an extra one up. Oh, and by the way, I tried the pickled eggs that I did with the same recipe for the brine that I just did. And I also cut up some habaneros to put in those. And I noticed something with that I also noticed with the habanero sauce that I made. And I don't know if all of you know this or not, but the habaneros back in 99, 2000-ish, at that time they were the hottest peppers in the world. That was before someone got on a biology kick and decided to do his own little experiment and make hotter peppers, and then everybody started doing it, and now all of a sudden we've got Reapers, and Pepper X, I believe, is twice as hot as a Reaper, and a Reaper was already about 1 million Scoville units, if I recall correctly, maybe 2. But Pepper X is like 3 or 4 million Scoville. But we can still say, well, actually, the Buchalokia, I think, is a natural one still. That one's pretty hot. That's a ghost pepper. They're still hard to find. Habaneros are my favorite because, yeah, they got a nice little kick to them. They're 500,000 to up to 1 million Scoville units if you get a really good one that's nice and high in octane. But they've got a really nice fruity flavor before they burn you up. And I was trying the hot sauce this morning while I was getting it pureed down and adding some apple cider vinegar to it, because I like my hot sauce to be a little on the thin side, kind of like Tabasco, but not quite. I'm a Louisiana hot sauce fan. I like them thinner, not chunky. If it's chunky, it's salsa. I can use that for chips. If it's thinner, it's a sauce. I can put it on whatever the hell I want. But it smelled amazing for one because of the fermentation. I never thought that fermenting habaneros would smell that good. And then I tasted it after I got the first little bit of it ran through my Cuisinart. And I was surprised that the fruity flavor at the front was so, I'm just gonna throw that whole, was so overpowering, and then the heat comes back up through your throat, through the back of your mouth. And that was just a little kick. Just a little kick in the pants. Just a little, hey, yo, I'm here. You know, it wasn't anything amazing. And it was the same thing when I tried one of the pickled eggs. And before I even started all of this pickling stuff, and quite honestly, the pickled eggs, I tried one of the peppers that were in the pickled eggs. That had that kick to it. It had the nice flavor and it had that kick to it. But the egg itself didn't really have the kick to it. It had the flavor, but it wasn't hot. And it was a nice little pleasant surprise. And I actually, before I started all this pickling stuff, a few weeks back, the first little experiment I did was I took a mason jar, filled it with some sliced up and some whole habaneros, and then I filled the jar up with apple cider vinegar. Let it sit for a week, didn't touch it, didn't do anything. Put some seasonings in there before I let it sit, obviously. I mean, just the usual stuff that I do, like garlic powder, onion powder, some salt, stuff like that. Nothing odd. We want to get that one in there too. This is what sucks about having to buy habaneros somewhere where they don't really grow. By the time they get to you, they're kind of on their way out the door already. And when they sit around each other, when some of them are on their way out the door, that kind of makes some of the rest of them go a little bit quicker. Oi. So now we're going to cut up. These are the better cheddar ones. And put in there. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to put that sauce in there. Some juice. There wasn't any juice in the other one. Just take these in half too. All right. Boom. Boom. Now I would like to be able to grow some peppers in my own little garden. The problem is I've tried growing stuff in my yard before, but I have a black walnut tree in my side yard. It's kind of in the middle between, it's kind of like where you cut off between the front yard and the backyard. So it affects my entire property. I've only got like a 1/4 acre. Someday maybe I'll live out in the country, but I've lived here for 18 years. I don't plan on moving anytime soon unless I find someone willing to move with me, and that doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon. But on the other side of the house, I tried to start like just a little mini garden within a couple years after we moved in here. And we filled it full. It was just the pepperoncini peppers. Like nothing major, just a little 4 foot by 4 foot square. Planted a bunch of those. Only one of them grew. Or at least I should say only one of them grew worth a damn. Get in there. There we go. Oh, let's put a little bit more habanero in there before I just put all the rest of these hot dogs in there. And then later on I found out I probably wouldn't ever be able to grow anything in my yard because that black walnut tree puts so much acid back in the soil that there's not a whole lot well, not really plants in general, but there's not a whole lot of produce that I'd be able to plant and have grow, at least not at a decent rate, to excuse me, to make it worth my while. So I was like, well, that kind of sucks, because I'd love to have just a nice little side yard full of some habaneros and some jalapenos and some Anaheims, which a lot of those would be hard to grow around here anyway, but I could probably grow them in the summer. But yeah, kind of crushed my hopes of being able to have a nice little garden to grow some food in. There we go. Alrighty, let's cut up some of these hot dogs. I was worried that I wouldn't have enough to fill this with. Now, granted, I'd probably be right where I needed to be with the sausages and the hot dogs if I didn't have the eggs in there. But I'm still thankful I went ahead and put the eggs in there. I think I'm still just going to cut these in half. I would have really loved to have gotten some Nathan's hot dogs to do this with. But Kroger wanted like $4 a pack for them. These regular price are like $1.65 a pack. And if you're paying more than that for hot dogs and you're not planning on doing some gourmet shit with them, don't do it. I mean, every now and then I'll treat myself and get the nice casing wieners that our local, one of our local meat markets does up and sells at the grocery store. I'm going to cover these up before I lose any more, of course. But that's not all the time. I mean, casing wiener isn't something you usually want all the time. Usually you just want a regular plain old hot dog. And I could have swore Kroger carried them, but there's these big pack of the quarter-pound hot dogs you can usually get at most places. I know Walmart carries them for sure, but I usually do my grocery shopping at Kroger. I couldn't find them online, and this last week I didn't do my grocery shopping in store. I just did it. I put together my list online and did a checkout because I wanted to do nice and easy and not wander around the store for an hour and buy a bunch of shit that I didn't need just because I was hungry or, oh, that looks good or stuff like that. I kind of wanted to just not worry about it. Oh, that one broke. Right. I'm gonna have to find a way to get these last 4 in there. I can't believe I was worried that I wasn't gonna have enough to fill this thing with. Now I'm more worried that I'm not gonna be able to get the lid on. Now I'm not worried about the liquid at all because obviously there's plenty of room between everything to get most, if not all, of my pickling juice in there. Let's move this closer to me now. All right. Just like Jell-O, there's always room for Jell-O. And if there's always room for Jell-O, there's always room for a hot dog. Always room for at least one more hot dog. So I'm ending up with an extra thing of hot dogs. A little ladle. I didn't think that through as far as where to put that. But I already brought this to a boil. And it's been sitting here next to me, cooling down a little bit, because if you saw the egg, if you saw me do the eggs, you would have seen that I burned the shit out of myself. Because I didn't think that one through. I literally took it right off the stove and started pouring it into glass jugs without an oven mitt or a rag or anything on. But that, and I'm not just trying to pour it into the thing straight from the pan like I did the other day with the eggs. I made sure to get a little more sophisticated this time. And I'm using a tool. And still somehow getting dribblies of it everywhere, but where they belong. That's kind of the fun in cooking yourself, though, making a little bit of the mess, but it does suck having to clean up the mess. My mouth is watering. Just wondering how good this stuff is going to be in a week or two when I get to try it. And I'm trying not to cover up my face, but I got to rotate arms because my arms are tired, and if I stand up, all you're going to see is like my chest down. And I don't have a cameraman. It's not in the budget. We're about half full. I think I ended up making way too much here. I didn't think. Maybe I should have only increased the recipe by half. I might have to figure out what to do with the rest of my pickling juice here. Because we are almost full. Oh, careful. And like I was saying before, I did the same recipe that I did with the eggs for the pickling juice. I just doubled it. So I went 2 cups of water, 4 cups of regular white vinegar, 2 cups of apple cider vinegar, 2 cups of Frank's Red Hot. I ended up doing 3 instead of 4 tablespoons of the pickling spice because A, I was running short, and B, I didn't think I needed to double the pickling spice. And I just realized I forgot to put any of the minced garlic I've got here in the actual jar. I did put some of the minced garlic in the pickling spice because I wanted some of it to be cooked. But we're going to shake this around anyway. I'm just going to put a nice big dollop of it right there on top. I love garlic. I decided against using actual cloves because I thought that using some fresh minced garlic might be a little bit more beneficial to the recipe. Let's see if I can get just a little more of this juice in there without it overflowing. Careful. Careful. There we are. Topped off, and I probably could still do almost another quart of something. If I had another jar, I'd cut those hot dogs up and we'd be golden. Screw this on very carefully, very carefully. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. My first batch of pickled sausages and hot dogs. And the only reason I really wanted to do those is, I don't know if you guys remember, like the Hot Mama pickles you can get at the gas station. I've always loved those. And the idea of being able to make them at home, I never even conceived it. It blew my mind. I knew about pickled eggs, because I've always liked pickled eggs. But I saw a recipe for this on YouTube, and I'm like, I'm doing that. But yeah. All right. That's going to be it for today. This weekend, I'm planning on, instead of just continuing making more apple cider, I'm going to make a grape version, which it starts with a P. I'll update you guys on what it's called. It starts with a P, but I don't want to sound like an idiot when I go to say it because I can't remember the actual word itself. But it's a grape mead. And it sounds delicious. And it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge because it's not like with the apple cider where you can see what's going on. It's going to be dark. You're going to have to trust that little guy bubbling, making sure the yeast in there is doing its job. And I'm going to have a hydrometer for that especially, so that every week or so I can stop and check it and see if there's even any more the yeast can do with it. But peace out, guys. We'll see you this weekend.